Hey guys, thanks for joining Learn to Play. My name is Lance, and today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Shadows of Brimstone. Shadows of Brimstone currently is one of my favorite games. It's a dungeon crawl with an adventure game mixed into one. It's a 1 to 4 player game unless you own both core sets. If you own both core sets, you can combine or use the characters from both to make it a 1 to 6 player game. Games can last anywhere from a half an hour all the way up to 3 or 4 hours, depending upon the mission you select. If you're playing a campaign, some of the other variables that are in there. Flying Fog Productions is also coming out with new stuff all the time. They just released the first expansion for this, Caverns of Cinder, which is also really cool, which I'll cover later on. And they have a bunch of new monster types, and they'll be releasing new heroes and things along with all the Kickstarter stuff that I'm super excited about. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you how to play. Alright, so we're going to look at character creation here, and we've selected the Gunslinger. So a little bit about his card. He has his abilities up top that are listed for skill checks that he'll take during the game. We have his initiative on the side, which will denote when he goes during the turn. We have any special abilities that are listed. We have his starting items, his health and sanity, and the defensive rolls to go along with those. We have his to hit range and his to hit melee, the maximum amount of grit that he can have, and with all of the characters, they are double-sided. So if you like to play as a female gunslinger, you can do that. Doesn't matter, the stats are exactly the same. Once you have your card selected, the next thing you're going to go ahead and do is grab the 3 starting abilities that the hero has and select one of those to play. So we'll go ahead and select this one. Go ahead and grab his starting gear. So he gets a pistol. He'll get a side bag. And he'll take one of the personal items at random from the draw pile. So we have a cigarette. From there, each hero gets to select one item: whiskey, bandages, or dynamite. Whiskey is for sanity. Bandages restore a little bit of health, and dynamite is for damage. So we'll go ahead and take some dynamite. He also will get 1 grit to start out with, which grit can be used to reroll any dice for an attack, or for defense, or for skill checks. It can also be used to move extra spaces, and we'll cover that a little bit more once we get into the game. And the last thing for him, he has a special template that gets filled with bullets. His starting bullets are Deadeye Shot, which will give him +2 damage when he takes one away to do wounds. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the depth track. And this is going to be used throughout the game to track the hero's descent into the mine. So as the heroes explore new tiles, each time they move into a new tile, they will move this track down the mine 1 spot. We're also going to track the darkness's ascent, trying to escape the mine. And so this will move each turn. You will select a hero for the whole game, and he will make a holding back the darkness test. How he does this is he'll roll 2 dice and add them together, and based on where the heroes are in the mine, he will have to roll equal to or greater than the value listed. So initially it's not as bad with a 7+, but as the heroes move down, it gets worse and worse and harder to hold it back. So as the heroes fail that test, the darkness will move up the mine. When it hits the blood splatter marks, you will draw a darkness card and resolve its effects. And then the same thing each time it hits a growing dread card, you will select a growing dread card and add it to a stack of cards that will be revealed and resolved at the end of the game before you fight the boss. And the last thing to keep in mind is if the darkness ever reaches the mine entrance, the game is over and the heroes have lost that mission. Alright, so this is what the board looks like once it's all set up. I'm not going to go through setup. I feel the book does a really good job of it. Mainly all you're doing is building your characters, shuffling up the decks of cards, and getting everything situated. So the last thing we need to do before we actually start the game is designate one of our heroes as the lantern holder. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Saloon Girl. And this has two effects. The first is that at the beginning of each turn, she is going to have to make a Holding Back the Darkness test, which she'll roll 2 dice and consult the chart depth track and see what she needs to roll equal to or greater than based on where the hero's marker is. The second thing that this will affect is with her holding the lantern is the only thing in the mines that illuminates the tile that she's on as well as every adjacent tile. So at the beginning of any other hero's turn, if they start on a tile that's not on a tile that's adjacent, on her tile or a tile that's adjacent, they will start hearing voices in the dark and will take d6 sanity damage. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and cover the hero's activation. So the heroes are going to activate in initiative order. So the first one that's going to go is the Gunslinger, since his initiative is a 6. What he's going to do first is roll 1 dice to see how far he can move. So he can move up to 5 spaces in any direction he chooses. The only things he can't do are move through other models or enemies. And if he would have happened to roll a 1, he would recover 1 grit, up to his maximum of 2. Once he has 2 grit, if he rolls a 1, then he would have to use that grit immediately, and he can use it on either abilities that he might have that will require grit, which right now he doesn't, or he can use it to roll an additional d6 of movement and add it to the value that he rolled before. So with his 5, he can move up to 5 spaces or to the edge of a tile, and then he'd have to stop. Now after that, he would have 2 options. He can perform a search on the tile here to try to scavenge some equipment or gold or something, or he can look through the door, as they say, and expands into the next tile. So let's go ahead and look through the door. So the first thing we're going to do is flip over a mine deck card, and it's going to show us a picture of the next tile that we're going to add on. Once we add the tile on, then we move the hero's tracker 1 because he's explored a new tile, and then we add a face down exploration token onto this tile, and that will be revealed at the end of the phase. So once that's done, that's all he can do. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the Saloon Girl. She's going to roll her dice. She rolls a 6. So she can move up to 6. Plus on her character, she's fast, so she gets an additional +1 movement, so she could move up to 7 spaces. But for game's sake, what we're going to do is move her up a couple, and we're going to go ahead and do a search on this tile to see if we find anything. So how you would do a search is you would roll 3 dice, and if you roll any 6s, then you found something. So we're going to go ahead and say that she did find something, so she would draw the top card from the scavenge deck, and so she found 50 gold. Once she does that, then you get a scavenge token on this tile, as every tile can only be searched 1 time. Once that's done, then this card will go back into the scavenge deck, and it would get reshuffled every single time that you use it. Alright, so now that both of our heroes have completed their movement, we move into the exploration part of the phase. So now that we have one hero that's in between the 2 tiles, we will flip this exploration token over. Alright, So there's a couple of things that it's going to show us. First off, it's going to show us the number of doors or paths that are open that we can move through, which in case this one, there's only one. So with this being a 3-path tile, what we'll do is look at the card that this tile was from, and it'll list the numbers on it. So we'll roll 1 dice, and that'll be the number of the spot that's open. So we rolled a 1, so up here will be open, and we'll go ahead and close these other 2 with end brackets. All right, and so the next thing on here is it says that there's an encounter. So what we'll do is we'll flip over the top encounter card and resolve it. So we found a prospector. So the first thing we need to do is make a cunning check. If successful, he uses his medical supplies to heal D3 wounds from each hero. If failed, he goes crazy doing D6 hits to a random hero before being shot to death. Alright, so as we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the characters, at the top here it lists their different stats. So we need to select one hero to make a cunning check. So both of our heroes are at a 3, so it really doesn't matter. So what this means is that based on the number that's underneath the skill that we have, we'll get that many dice to roll. And on this card it lists that the cunning is a 5+, so we need to have at least one of those dice come up as a 5 or better. So we have 2 5s, so we have passed the test. None of our heroes have taken any damage yet, so we won't do that. But then there's another part to this. A random hero can take a luck test of 5+. If successful on his way out, he hands you loot. If failed, he falls to his knees and explodes in a shower of gore as something bursts out of him. Tentacle attack. Alright, so let's find out if our heroes are lucky or not. So the first thing we need to do is determine a hero. So in this case we only have 2, so we'll go with a 1, 2, or 3, it's the gunslinger, and a 4, 5, 6, it's the sloom girl. So it's a 1, 2, 3, so the gunslinger is going to go, and his luck is a 4, so he's pretty lucky, and we're looking for at least one dice that's a 5 or 6. And so we have the one up here, which is a 5, so we have passed the test. So in that situation, then all of our characters, he would get 1 loot card for passing that test. So we would draw the top card of the loot, and so he would get 250 gold and 20 XP. So this is only really good if we're playing a campaign. If you're just playing a one-off game, then don't worry about keeping track of experience or gold, because it really won't help you. Alright, so now that we've resolved that encounter token, there's nothing else we can do this game turn, so the turn would end, and we would start back from the beginning with a holding back the darkness test, or as I refer to it, a lantern check. So for the sake of this video though, what we're going to do is we're going to change things up a little bit and say that instead of drawing that token, we drew this token instead. Which with this one, it lists that there's 2 doors, and that there's an attack, and that we found a clue. So let's start up top with the doors. So this time we're gonna just roll 1 dice again to see which doorway is closed. So this time it's a 3, 4, so it's the center point. So we've taken care of that. Now we can resolve the attack. So based on the number of heroes that you have, which we have 2, we're going to draw out of the low threat deck, because it'll tell us right there that it's 1 to 2 heroes. So we found some tentacles, and it lists on the side of the tentacles that we'll roll the dice that's associated with that to see how many tentacles we fight. So we fight 5 tentacles. So the tentacles are going to be placed in a checker mark furthest away from the heroes. Like that. And then the last thing on this token before we get into the combat is the clue. So a lot of the adventures that you're playing or missions will have a certain number of clues that you need to find before you can find the final boss or find whatever you're looking for. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch things around a little bit and change the camera up so that we get a little bit closer for this fight, and we'll start with the next turn. Alright, so before we head into the next round and start into this combat, the last thing we need to do is with the gunslinger, he has a special ability, Quick Draw. It states, anytime a new group of enemies is placed on the board, you may immediately make a free attack outside of the normal turn sequence. So this will give us a good chance to see how combat works. So the first thing we need to do is look at his weapon. It has a range of 6. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces away, so we have plenty of range to just about everybody. And it gets 2 shots, so we would get 2 dice, and we're going to roll those dice, and we're looking for 3s or better because we'll consult his range, and his range is +3 or 3 or better. So we'll roll those dice. We got a 6 and a 1. So from here, let's go over the monster card real quick. So here it is. So the monsters have an initiative of 2. So going in initiative order, they'll be the last to go. This lists some of their special abilities here. Over here we have their movement and an escape check. So if a hero is adjacent to them and they want to move away, then they would need to make an escape check and roll 4 or better. We have their to hit rolls, which they have no range, but their melee, there's a 4+. They get 3 dice for combat. They do 3 damage for each hit that they do. And the thing that we need to pay attention to right now is their health. So they have 4 health and 2 defense. And what the defense means is that for every time the hero rolls a dice, you'll subtract 2 from the result of the dice for their to wound roll. Unless a critical is rolled, in which case then it bypasses defense. So he missed with 1, but we're going to go ahead and fire the second one at a critical. We'll go ahead and target this guy over here. So he rolls a 6 again. So it would do 6 points of damage, which is more than enough to kill that tentacle, so he gets eliminated. Alright, so at the beginning of our turn, we have to make our holding back the darkness test, or our lantern check like I like to refer to it as. So we're going to roll our 2 dice from the Saloon Girl, and she rolls a 3 this time, which isn't enough to pass that test because we needed a 7+. So we're going to move the darkness 1 step, and it's just a blank space, so we don't get any bad results from it. And then we start with the heroes with initiative order, or we start with the highest initiative, which happens to be the heroes. So the gunslinger is going to go first, and we're going to roll for movement. So he gets a 4, so we're going to move him up. We're just going to go 3. So in order to chuck dynamite, we're going to get rid of this token, and we're going to pick a spot, which now I can show you some of these great cards that they have. I would definitely use these. These are quick reference cards. So if we take a look at the dynamite, it says that its range is the hero's strength +3. So the gunslinger's strength is 2. +3 would be 5, so we got plenty of range. So we're going to go ahead and select our target. So let's go with this space here. And from there, then we're going to roll 1 dice and see if we successfully hit that space against his range check, so 3+. So we failed. So now the dynamite is going to bounce. So we flip this card over, and it's going to show us our bounce diagram. So I like to put it up there so we can see it. So then we determine how many times it bounces. So we roll a d6 and half it, so it's going to bounce 3 times. And so then we're going to roll a d8, and that's going to tell us the direction that it bounces. So our first bounce is a 1. So it's going to move off, and anytime it moves off the field, it actually will just stay right where it is. So our second bounce is a 1, so it's going to stay right there. And our third bounce is a 5, so it's going to move 1 here. So this is bad. It's going to hit this zone and every zone adjacent to it, so it's going to hit the tentacle, but it's also going to hit the gunslinger. So let's see what it does. So against the tentacle, it goes past defense. So it does a 4, which is enough to kill the tentacle. And against our poor gunslinger, we take 5 damage. So he got it walloped. From here, then we're going to move on to the gunslinger, or the saloon girl. So she's going to roll for her movement first. So she gets a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And she gets to remove 1 more for her fast ability. So she's a melee character. So she needs to be adjacent to enemies, and we're going to look at her combat value of 2. So she's going to get 2 dice, and she's going to need to get 4s or better to cause hits. And she rolls 2 hits. So neither one of these were critical, so we're just going to go against the monster with armor on. So our first one's a 4, so it does 2 damage. But her special ability is that she is a dirty fightin'. So all of her attacks are +1 damage, so that tentacle only has 1 damage left, since she did 3. And so her second attack against it only does 1, which isn't enough to kill it. So it still has 1 damage left. So let's go ahead and shoot our pistol at it, which is a once per fight shot, and we're going to need a 4+. So we do hit. And let's see if we can wound it. And this time we rolled a 6. So it'll be enough to finish it off. And so our heroes are done. So let's go to the monster now. So the monster gets to move 6 spaces, so it has plenty of range. So let's see which hero goes after. It's a random hero. So 1, 2, 3 gunslinger, 4, 5, 6 the saloon girl. It's going to go after the gunslinger. It smells blood in the water. So it's going to get its 3 dice for combat. And it needs 5s or better. So it rolled 2 3s and a 6. So under its special abilities, it says a tentacle to hit rolls of 6 ignore hero's defense. So it's going to go straight to his health. And so he's going to take 3 more hits, which would put him up to 8. So he's getting dangerously close to being KO'd. And so that would finish off the turn. Alright, so I'm not going to finish this combat out, but I do want to go over a couple more things. So if a hero sustains enough damage to equal their health or their sanity, they get KO'd, so they would get turned face down. If all the heroes get knocked out, then the game is over. If the other heroes that are still up are able to fight off the monsters and kill them, then at the end of the turn the hero would stand back up, and he would roll 2 dice on either the injury chart, if it's for health, or if he was KO'd on sanity, then he would roll on the madness chart. And based on what he rolls, he would add that effect to his person. Alright, so other things I want to look at real quick are a couple of the other tokens. So we have, if we would have gotten this one, it's an ambush attack. So the only difference is with an ambush attack, the monsters, instead of coming out at the back of the board, are going to come out right around the heroes. And so you would place the monsters as evenly as you can and distribute them among the heroes. And then during that first turn of combat, all the monsters that are involved are +2 initiative. So some of them can already have high initiative as it is, so that'll even make things worse. And then the other card the other token I'd like to go over real quick is the Growing Dread encounter token. So with this one, as it shows, you would add a Growing Dread card to the stack if you draw this one. Alright, so other than that, once the combat is finished, each hero would draw a loot card, so based on how many cards. So if we would have had like a couple of cards out there, then for each card that was out there, then they would draw 1 loot card, up to 3 loot cards. And usually, though, like I said, those are usually only good if you're playing a campaign, but there are a couple geared card draws in there and things like that, so you definitely still want to take care of that. And then the other thing they get to do is that they get to do a mend wound roll, basically. So each hero would roll 1 dice, and they would get half of the result, so a 1, 2, or 3, and they can remove up to 3 wounds or sanity or a mix of. If a hero did not interact with that last round of combat, if they didn't get to fight or whatever that last round, then they would get a full D6 back, so just a little bit of extra, since they didn't get to actually do anything that round. Alright, so the last thing I'd like to go over is the Growing Dread cards. So during the game, you're going to accumulate these cards by the depth track, or by other terrible events that come up that would cause you to draw those. And so once you get to the point where you're going to fight the boss, right before that you're going to resolve these cards. Some of them are really nasty, but the heroes aren't going to just idly sit by and take it on the chin. They have one option that they can do. If every hero that's playing discards 1 grit, they can remove a Growing Dread card from the pile, or once it's revealed, if they find that this is just a horrible card and they don't want to deal with it, they can spend 1 grit each and remove that card from play. Other than that, you would have to resolve each of those cards before you fought the final boss.